Ready. Good evening. Good evening. Tag, share, bring somebody in. Good evening, everybody. Bring somebody in, share, tag, and say hello to us so that we know you're here. I see Miss Vanessa is here. Pastor John J. Davis. I see you. Ebenezer Full Gospel Baptist Church from Downingtown, Pennsylvania is on. Blessings. Dr. Sharon Smith is here with us on tonight. Blessings to Catrice. Hi, Sherry Tate. Blessings, blessings. Pretty Nate. Hey. His favor is on me. What? And you know what it is. It's that favor, honey. That's it. It's that favor. It's the favor. It's the favor. It's the favor of God that's on our lives. And we bless the Lord today. That is the single from Release in Heaven Volume 4, The Birthing Room, that we recorded in September of 2023 in Chicago, in Chi Town. And it was released on March 1st, my birthday. And now we are leading into the next phase of birthing. Hi, Andrea Roper. We are leading into the next phase of this birthing movement. And that is getting ready for the conference, 1 day conference here in the metropolitan Detroit area. It is us getting ready for the release of the complete project that will be released on Friday, June 28th. So at midnight. Guess what though? If you go on now and you search Dana D. Berry, and it's gonna come up with this fabulous fuchsia dress. That was a great photo shoot. I had such a great time. So this fuchsia dress is gonna pop up. And guess what? If you go on and download now, you get favor, you get you also get almost you're almost there, which is another feature with Tanya Ray as the solo on that song. And so we want you to go to your digital outlets and search Dana D. Berry and get that music. On Friday, June 28th at midnight, you will have the whole project. The whole project will be available to you. But tonight, as we are leading into the conference, we like to have conversations. We like to get your palates wet, get your appetite, like, yes, I need to get to that conference. Like, I need to be there because there's some good stuff they talking about. Hi, Angela Morris. So with that being said, we are here tonight with some amazing men of God to have a discussion. And we're going to bring up Britt now, who is our co host. We came in a little different than we normally do tonight. And so I didn't want to do the 5 minute intro. Y'all will get that in the morning. I didn't feel like that tonight. I just wanted to, let's do favor. Let's just, it's about the birthing room. It's not about, that 5 minute intro, which is I think sound the alarm. I think that's part of sound the alarm. But anyways, we here. Hey, Britt.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great, and you?
I'm good. I'm excited about this conversation.
I think this is going to be some good conversation indeed. Yes. So you ready? You want to bring the guys up?
Yes, let's bring them on in.
Hey, y'all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I love it. The testosterone.
Good to see you guys.
Good to be here with y'all. Turn it over to Britt.
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. Super excited about this conversation. So I know Pastor Craig will be joining us pretty soon here. But I just want to get started and just jump right into it. Can each of you, either one of you can go first, just introduce yourself and just share a little bit about your story, who you are, what you want the folks to know.
That's a loaded question.
Oh, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I'll go ahead and I'll dive in. My name is David. I just turned 30 back in January, so I'm like halfway inside the 30 club now. So let's see. I don't know, a little bit about me. I'm in corporate America. I am also pursuing entrepreneurship at the moment. I recently started a prayer movement specifically for men, so hoping to be able to connect and build a community of men that way. I've got an 8-year-old kid. He's fantastic. But yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Well, I'm Pastor Derek Tyson, and I am just honored and grateful to be here on tonight. A little about me. I am the assistant pastor of my pastor, my bishop, and my mom. She's the pastor of Ebenezer Full Gospel Baptist Church in downtown PA and the River of Life Church in Wilmington, Delaware. And I assist her and have been assisting her all my life, pretty much. She had me at 17 years old, and I never left her side. And so I'm grateful and honored to just be able to serve in the kingdom. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm a chef. I cook, I cater, and I also write, produce. I did a stage play called I'm Tired of Playing Church. And we are also working on our YouTube channel now, just a little bit about me. I have a 20-year-old son who will be turning 21 this year. And so I'm thankful for that because I kind of did things opposite with him, what my dad did with me. I made sure I was a part of his life to nurture him and grow him and to become a great man so far that he has become. So I'm just excited to be able to share whatever I can share to be able to help a man or even some women to be able to understand their purpose and birth their purpose in the season that we're in now.
Absolutely. I love that. I love the range that Pastor Dana always brings to the live. The range in experience, age, wisdom, all of it. So I absolutely, I love that. So the birthing room, we talk a lot about purpose, birthing out purpose. We talk a lot about what it looks like birthing in the natural. We make a lot of correlations. Can each of you share a moment, or I would say the moment, but you birthed multiple times in life. So a moment when you were realizing that you were going through a birthing process, and what was that experience like for you?
So,
Go ahead.
You got it. Go ahead.
I think with me, 8 or less years ago, when I kind of developed on who I wanted to be in God and not be a copycat. I think Pastor Dana can kind of attest to this. When I first started my ministry, I wanted to sound like Bishop Noel Jones. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn and develop myself as years passed, and I wanted God to use me on who he created me to be. And so once I recognized that, and that's where I came up with the concept of mastermind reset. I wanted to reprogram my whole thought process and let God use me for the original person who he created me to be. And once I did that and began to meditate and spend time with him, it created a masterpiece. And so I think if people learn to let God use them and let him form them to be the original who he created them to be, they can get so much more accomplished and understand why they're here and what their purpose is here on this earth. So I'm excited that I discovered that like 8+ years ago, and I've been in ministry my whole life.
Devay, before you go, Pastor Tyson, I just want to dig in a little bit here, because it takes a lot of authenticity, a lot of courage, even, now being on the other side, to say, I knew I had something in me, but I was trying to model that after someone else or something else that I've seen. How, going back to that moment, because I think that's a hard truth you have to expose to yourself can be difficult. Mm-hmm. So can you just talk to us a little bit about even that? I think about that like a complication in birth. Dang, I'm really sitting here trying to do something outside of or in a different way than how God wants me to do that. Can you talk to us a little bit about even that realization and that process that you had to go through for yourself, to say that I'm trying to be somebody else? I feel like I've never heard that in the metaverse. in this world I've never heard anybody be just straight up and say, I was trying to model what God gave me after someone else.
Yeah, well, I've always been different. And like I said, and I kind of never fit in. It's like everybody always wanted to be around me. And with me always trying to fit in, it just never worked. And I noticed and I knew that I was a different and unique type of person. And so for me to get out all that God wanted to get out of me, I had to separate myself and put myself in isolation mode to really let God talk to me and speak to me. And I think one of the things is if people will really grasp a hold what God means when he says, study and meditate on my word day and night. And I feel like if you learn to spend that time with God and attach to him, just like men try to attach to a woman and get their attention, a woman to the man, if you learn to put that same energy like I did to attach to God it will develop everything that your heart so desire. And so I always was different. It seemed like when I was little, going to my dad's house, under 10 years old, all the older people just wanted to hang around me. So there was something special in me that I do. I just want to be a copycat and do what everybody else was doing. And so if you can just learn to stand out and not fit in, you can go a whole, your road and your vision can be so much clearer and not just follow the trend of everybody else. And it's what I don't do. I want to be able to be unique and different and not follow the trend of everybody else. And if you really want God to use you for the reason he created you, be different.
That's so good. DeVay.
Yeah, like just to stay there for a second, I think that it's so easy to get caught, in that web. I'll refer to it as, just because that is what is accepted and that is what's common and that is what has been deemed as success. And so by default, we tend to gravitate to other people's copies because of the fact when we see success equated to it, when we see this is what this is supposed to look like, by default, you just kind of fall into that, into a web. I'm avoiding using the word trap, but a web. But for me specifically, I think it was the realization that I am more than what I can do inside of a pulpit. And I think that birthing process for me was very aggressive because I had a hard time accepting it, because for so long, like when I first started off in ministry, I was expecting my life to go in that direction, to say that this is it for me, right? Like I can, have a odd job or whatever, but me moving and me transitioning into speaking and doing all these things now, it's just like, this is the end all be all. This is how I'm gonna eat. This is how I'm gonna do everything. And it's just like, God was like, pump the brakes, big fella. There's a lot more that I put inside of you outside of that. And he told me specifically when I was praying, but like it was a few years ago. And I was like, God, I don't understand why, things are transitioning the way that they are, especially when I was relocated to Dallas. And he specifically told me that the work that you will do outside of the pulpit is greater than what you can ever accomplish inside of it. And so, yes, the pulpit matters, but there is more work to do when you actually put the mic down and go into the streets and into the real world. And so that birthing process of me accepting the fact that there's purpose in my corporate position, there's purpose in the things that I'm pursuing outside of, again, a church building. And so learning the duality of who I am and knowing that, yes, I have a crazy miracle birth story. I was born out of a barren womb, all the things like those are major, but just knowing that there's a reason for it. And again, it goes beyond just what can happen inside of a church. Hard acceptance, hard pill to swallow, but here we are and all is well. It's going good. So I can say that I've learned a lot more in my experience after I stopped fighting God on it. Once I've accepted the fact that this is where I am and this is where you're calling me for the season or for the rest of my life, whatever that looks like. I feel like I've learned more now than I have over the last 11 years of me preaching. And so I have more experience now. I have more everything, all the things. Yeah.
That's good.
Wow.
That's
Great.
good. I love that. And I just love the vulnerability that y'all on here, because these are the things that not just men need to hear, but just even women need to hear. Like, because we have a concept of the way that we think that God is going to use us, whether it's our preconceived notions, our own desires, what we see. I think, DeVay, you touched on something when you said what we've already seen have success. And I think that having the faith in what's inside of you, maybe not looking like other people, that can be, Lord Jesus, help me, because I have to have faith that it may look different and still be successful, instead of it just being successful the way it's constantly being shown or the way it's been manifested in the past. I love this. Woo! Okay. All right, y'all. Pastor Dana's going to fire me from my job. Okay. Okay, but next question. So we talk a lot about the village and about the roles that up in the birthing room. You have your midwives. Both of you have children, doctors, midwives, lactation specialists, and this specialist, and pediatricians, and all of the things and all of the people. And it is just I was going to say more common now, but I guess men have always needed other people. Men have always needed other men. I think we're getting into a place in this time where we're talking about that more, and just being surrounded and having accountable people or real mentorship and role models needed. Can you talk a little bit about your village, whether it was in your time of birthing, whether it's now, and just how, or lack thereof, right, in important moments, and how that has impacted what you've been able to birth in the earth, and how that impacts, when you're carrying something and when you're going through those different processes of birthing and carrying and birthing and carrying?
I think so for me, I would say that I have a very, very small, tight village. And when it comes down to it, it was the realization again of, I think that one of those things that we've learned just kind of in our adulthood is kind of what place people serve in our lives and what purpose people serve in our lives. And I think it is a very dangerous thing if we have somebody in our life who is a plumber trying to serve as a doctor. If we have somebody trying to serve as a mentor that really is like a friend or something else. And so I think you have to be very strategic with the way that you allow people and even the access that you grant, because it doesn't mean that you close yourself off from the rest of the world. I'm not one of those people. I don't support cutoff culture. I'm not that person, but I do believe that you have to be very intentional with the people that you have and in their assignment and in their roles that they play in your life. So for me, pertaining to my village in particular, I've been surrounded by intercessors. I've been surrounded by prophets and people that have actually spoken life into me when the only thing I wanted to do was die. The only thing I wanted to do was literally throw in the towel and just call it quits. There were people that were literally surrounding me, and they still are surrounding me, just to remind me and just to keep my mind fixated and focused on the things that God has said, because we know it gets discouraging at times. It can be debilitating at times, like carrying the cross or walking the walk, all the things. And so that village matters, because that village will literally be your life or death if you're not careful. I will unfortunately go back to the garden for a second and say that because of, even in the garden, we see kind of a lack of success when it comes down to people around you being able to speak the right things to you. It was very easy for Adam and Eve to fall subject to the serpent's instructions. And so I think that the surrounding, there's a whole lot.
I'm going to jump in right there because that's so good. And I know that for where I've come from in my life and for where I am right now, I have allowed people to be in spaces that they should have never been in. I've allowed people to have voice about certain things in my life that they should never have been able to have a voice about, because they were not qualified to speak to that space or that part of who I was or who I am. And so I think that is so important that we understand how to place people exactly where they're supposed to be. It's a puzzle of life. And when you put a puzzle piece in the wrong place, it doesn't fit. And so when it doesn't fit, then you got to pull that thing up and you got to figure out where it's supposed to go. How does it fit? How do we make sure that the picture of life or the puzzle of life is exactly how God designed it to be? And so I think that comes through discernment. It comes through wisdom. It comes through prayer. It comes through just asking Holy Spirit to give you those right people in those right spaces. And as you're birthing destiny and purpose, you'll get counterfeits. You'll get people that will come into your life. Literally, their assignment is to cause you to abort what God has called you to give life to. And so that right there, that's good stuff right there, debate, because it's just, there are people that'll be with you for the rest of your life. And then there are some people who is for this little 5 second to help you navigate that little space right there. And you don't have to, hey, we speak, we good, but you served your purpose. And I think that when people serve their purpose and we want to keep them longer, that's when we cause detriment to what God has assigned to our hands.
That was good. I like the talk about the village, because it is very important who we allow in our faces. We are allowed to watch our guard, to be our guards and watch our doorposts. It's crazy because I was just saying, when I think of the story of King Xerxes and Esther, how he had two men that was watching his door that planned assassination on him, who he thought he could trust. And it was by Mordecai, who heard the plan that was getting ready to take place. And here Haman, who King Xerxes trusted, gave him his signet ring to be his right-hand man. And so when I got into that and studying that, there were people even around me who I thought I can trust in my village that was trying to assassinate and destroy me. And so I like the way God sets things up, because giving birth and birthing the purpose is not going to be easy. When you birth something, and you know, Pastor Dana, with kids, I don't know if you have kids, Simone. Oh, you have kids as well, but you understand when you go through birthing, it's a lot of pain through the birthing process. But at the end, and when you birth that baby, you see the great result from pushing so hard through all the pain and the struggle that you had to go through. So when you're building that village, there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, but you have to watch your life be at your doorpost and be your guard, because there are ones that surround us. Those closest to us seem to be the ones that's trying to assassinate us at times. So we have to be very careful and watch as well as pray, so we can really not let the enemy sneak in and try to take us out. And that's what I've done within my village. And I like what even Pastor said here, how he has a great team around him, but it took time for all of us to get a great team around him. It don't just happen overnight. And so I'm just thankful about what it took for me and for how God was able to allow me to build a great village and a team around me. And I'm thankful for that.
And I think too that I will add this tidbit, like when it comes to right sizing and making sure that people are where they belong, like I get stuck in the garden sometimes because I was like, the serpent's place has been beneath our feet, and unfortunately he was in our ears and in our head. And so it was just like, you were in an elevated place where you shouldn't have had influence over me, because we were given dominion over that space. And so when you're not careful, you fall subject to a voice that you're not even supposed to be listening to.
Right. That's good.
Absolutely. This has been so good. I just want to add one thing to the village conversation. And I think a part of being strategic, I know a lot of times when, at least me, I speak to myself, when I think about being strategic with connections, relationships, and the roles that we put people in, a lot of times it's from the space of allowing them to kind of speak into your life, or even have access to some of the things you're working on or things God is calling you, etc. And one thing God began to show me is sometimes I'm giving you people that you can just relax around too sometimes. Like, they don't have to know what's going on in all your business, but like, some people are just people that you can laugh with. Like, there are people and some people can have dual roles, and to be discerning to the dual roles. So I like to use my pastor. Sometimes my pastor is my pastor, and sometimes my pastor is more like a father, and sometimes my pastor, it'll be a time where like I don't have to say anything. I can just walk into your office and I'll just bust out crying, and he doesn't have to have any details. It's just a hug, and we kept it moving. So I think like also discerning about, sometimes we get real caught up in trying to make, our business partner our friend, or make your pastor your father, or whatever the case may be, and learning to be discerning about the roles and the places in the times that they're appropriate. And that's a hard one, because sometimes I do this with my mom. I'd be like, I just want you to be my mom. I don't want you to be my pastor. I don't want to hear no scripture. Girl, she'd be like, well, but learning that like there are times when I don't want to hear it, but that's what she's going to be in that moment for me. That's what you need. So that's all I just wanted to add. But I love this so much. Okay, Pastor Tyson, you just spoke on a little bit of that natural birthing, the natural component. I think a lot of times with women, it is easy for women, or sometimes mothers who have gone through the natural birthing process, to easily just connect that with the spiritual birthing, because we feel that in our bodies, right? Can you each talk a little bit about what birthing the actual process itself means to you from a male perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Either one of you.
You want to go? Or you want?
Oh, you got it. You started. Go ahead. You got it.
Learning from this from a male perspective, and I think with males, I really want men to identify who they are and love themselves first, so it can allow them to be able to give birth. Because I think so many of us men have so much baggage and things on the inside of us that we just keep jumping and jumping and jumping. We don't allow ourselves to get purified and cleansed to be able to give birthing to things that God wants to birth out of us. And I know, because I'm pretty much talking about myself, for me to allow myself to give birth and go through the birth process, I had to love me, get to know who I was. And a lot of men really don't know who they are, and they really don't care much and love themselves. That's why it's easy for them to hurt women and to portray to be someone that they're not, because they have not yet learned to love themselves enough to care about connecting with someone and loving that woman unconditional. And so once you begin to do that, I think it makes the process easier to give birth with a man on a perspective. Because too many of us today, especially in today's time with all the social media and everything going on, we don't allow ourselves to get healed from past hurts so we can be open and ready to give birth to that thing that God has placed on the inside of us.
I'll just add a little bit to that, because I think that hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways. And I'll say that in addition to that, I think that there's a certain level of, like you were talking about with the knowing your purpose and understanding your identity, but also accepting that and knowing that, and giving birth is a very vulnerable state. Because at that specific moment, like watching my son's mother give birth, she was completely vulnerable, and she was dependent on literally all of us surrounding her, the doctors, the nurses, and me, and our mothers, supporting her in order to be able to get that thing out of her, my child. So, in order for us to really be able to accept our identity and accept the fact that this birthing process is painful, we have to be okay with being vulnerable, and we have to be okay with relying on the village and the support system that we have surrounding us, because outside of that, we'll never do it. Women that give birth by themselves, I'm pretty sure it's dangerous and it's not safe, and it's not ideal. That's why they do, there are the midwives, there are the nurses, there are the doctors and the people to hold you up to get that thing out. So, yeah.
And speaking to that, while we're there, can you give some keys to how to navigate this? What are some keys that have helped you navigate birthing outside of prayer? What are some other key components that you had that worked for you?
So for me specifically, I became very comfortable with therapy. I became very comfortable with my outlets. And so my therapist cut me down a little bit, and I was a little disappointed, but he cut me down. We were seeing each other maybe once or twice a week, and now he's got me down to twice a month. But
that means you're doing good, DeVay.
No, it's
when they cut you down, that's yes, you're doing great.
I celebrate the progress for sure. But that was kind of my space, and I learned vulnerability kind of in that space. Like, and don't get me wrong, I grew up in a house. My mom is a therapist. She has been for a very long time. So I grew up in a house with that, but even sometimes it would take a lot for her to get stuff out of me because I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to be sensitive. I didn't want her to see me, her child, in this weak state. And so I found me somebody that I could actually unleash and let this stuff out. And so for me, therapy was the biggest thing. For a while, I was journaling, and I know people don't like to talk about journaling, but I had to write stuff down because I had to reread my thoughts and find out where I was being irrational, where I was being logical, and what didn't make any sense. And just reading it, it was like, no, you're really cutting up today. Go ahead and try again. Like, let's try this again. Hit the reset button, and we'll try again tomorrow. And so those were things for me. Like, and me writing, it wasn't about like me being emotional. It was just me about writing out what I was feeling in the moment, and then me going back and realizing and sitting with my own thoughts, like, oh, this isn't okay. You're the problem, kiddo. So let's get this, let's work on this, and let's fix it. But I think that it is crucial because it also does help you realize where you are, and it'll give you better language, it'll give you better perspective, and so. And then I have fun. I laugh a lot. I talk to my people or whatever, and sometimes I'm able to vent to a part of my village because of the fact that there is trust there, so I can get spiritual and natural guidance as well at the same time. So just creating some different channels for me.
Mm-hmm. I think my outlet is I help deal with a lot of things. Y'all don't laugh at me. Like I love to play my PS5 when I do have the time. I still play basketball because it helps me emotionally and it helps me release and to refocus my thought process. So I've just learned to attach to things that's just not always being in ministry, as you guys know, it's a lot. And then when you have your personal life, you have your entrepreneurship going on, you have to juggle all those things. And I work at FedEx as well. And so I get free therapy calls a couple of times, and they were good. And I love that people are able to have that therapy, that therapist that they reach out to. And I just have found ways to find outlets that helps me, that's deal with the things that I go through. And like you said, outside of prayer and my meditation and time with God, that helped me. Like just for the pandemic, that's when I pretty much even wrote my book about winning the war in your mind. Because at 20 years old, I had a nervous breakdown. And so it was always, the enemy was always trying to attack me in my mind. And that's how come where I'm at today at 49 years old, I'm able to be able to help a lot of people kind of deal with the battlefield in their mind, because I've been there and I've done that. And I'm just thankful, to God that he's allowed me to still be here to share that testimony.
And I think creating healthy outlets, so staying away from the substances, staying away from like the pornography as a way to decompress, staying away from sexual abuse, staying away from like promiscuity. Those things you have to consider those things as like you being like in your third trimester or your second trimester, and you're consuming buckets of alcohol and like buckets of cigarettes. Like those are the things that are going to contaminate what you're actually trying to produce. So you got to be careful. But,
yeah. And this is one more thing that I don't know if people really realize is a key component to help you with your mental is working out. I've lost over 30 pounds since January because I was at 225 and now I'm at 196. And so I took the beginning of this year because I can feel the difference in my body. As you approach 50, y'all ain't there yet, but when you get there, I know Pastor Terry, he got a long way to go.
I'm right behind you, sir.
But as they say, as the state, health is great wealth. And so I had to make a sound decision within myself to say, my eyebrows were bleeding, back was hurting, knees was hurting. And said, just start to take care of yourself better, eat better, drink more water. And it helped me mentally, even with my spiritual and everything, because when you exercise, you're working out all those muscles, and it actually helps you with stress and with your mental. So a lot of people don't, they don't want to do all that, but that's outlet to really help you with stress and your mental.
I love that so much. And Pastor Tyson, I like how you started out with just when we first started getting on the keys to walking out this birthing process, and what that means to you is learning to love yourself. And I know I said for men, but I think just in general, we have a big movement around self-care, like just social media, self-care. But I think learning to love yourself, and it ties directly in with what you said today, like in the vulnerability. So a lot of times we don't want to get vulnerable because I might not like that part of me. And then so then it becomes back into some self-rejection. But when you really tap into that self-love, you take care of yourself a little bit better, and you kind of carry with a little bit more of a level of seriousness about yourself, because you have come into the acceptance and the receiving of God's love, and in turn internalizing that into loving yourself, even the parts that aren't perfect and are hard to swallow, or need some work, or need to sit on a couch, or need to be just mended and worked on. And I just love that so much. If I could repeat anything from this live, learning to love yourself, I think it's just it's so important. And it's so important to the birthing process, because everything that you do while you're carrying, some of those things are going to come out when you lay on that table, and it has to come out anyway. What you have inside you has to come out anyway, but it comes out a lot easier. Like for all the mamas, if you work out during your pregnancy, the birthing process is so much easier because you've been utilizing and moving your body. But when you're fighting it the whole time, you're gonna be in there for 2 days. You're gonna be in there for 68 hours. Or whatever. So I think I'm tying that into the spiritual, though, when you're doing the things to take care of yourself and really nurture while you're carrying your mind, your spirit, your physical body. I think it all ties into acknowledging and loving yourself enough to accept the love that God has for you. That's so good. Okay. Another question. So I really want to know this. How can women better support men through their birthing process? Because I think, sometimes men and women, we speak different languages. We don't always understand, that maybe you're birthing something. Like, I may not always be able to understand that a man in my life is birthing something. They just may seem distant, or a slew of other things. So or a slew of other things. You know how y'all get to act. But without you saying, hey, I'm going through this process, which a lot of times y'all don't write out, say in the moment, hey, I'm going through a process and I'm feeling some things and I got some tugging and some pulling and the baby is kicking and it's frustrating me. And y'all don't always say that. So how can women better support men through their birthing process?
I would say patience. Exercise patience. And I say that because the thing to always remember about men is that though we have emotions and all of those things, we are not emotional beings. So they exist, but there's not always language to be able to articulate what's happening. And so I think sometimes it takes a process. Like, I'll use myself as a prime example. I could be going through kind of like something or quite a few things, and I will sit in silence. I will sit and I will watch TV. I won't want to talk a whole lot. I'll just be chilling, and I'm just minding my business. And for me, it's a deal of, it may take me about a week or two to honestly be able to articulate what's going on inside my brain. And so I say patience, because it's not always because I know sometimes, like for women, a lot of our process gets internalized. And so I think that's when it becomes dangerous, is when we're going through a process and you start to take it personal, or when we're going through a birthing and you start to take it personal, because sometimes we have visions that we don't know how to decode. Sometimes we have thoughts that we don't understand how to navigate through. Sometimes we're dealing with certain experiences or whatever that we just don't, again, always have the language to be able to articulate and say, this is what's happening right now. And so I think the biggest thing, like I said, for me, it would just be like patience. I'm coming around the mountain. Just give me a minute.
So, Nene, as I call her, she's on here as El Renee Compton, but she's Nene. asked a good question. How can men communicate it better? Are there, we understand, because at the end of the day, we go through too. We're birthing too. We're pregnant too. But our level of, let me tell you what's going on with me. Or I know my famous things. I need to talk to you. My husband going to panic mode. Jesus, what's happening? No, I need to talk to you. But being able to get it articulated, get it out of me, because I want the person who is close to me to be able to understand what's going on with me so that they can cover me and pray for me and support me, encourage me. So how can y'all communicate it better?
Well, I was going to say mine was going to be communication. I feel like I love to communicate. I wasn't always a great communicator, but as I got older and wiser, I want to communicate. I want to know what you feel. I want to know what you're going through. And all men don't like that. They want, like you said, they want to guess. But I want to talk at night. How was your day? What can we do? What can I do to make the day go better tomorrow? You know, I need to know what's on your mind. I don't want you to read and try to be a mind reader on what's going on through my mind. I'm going to let know what's going on in my mind. And we're going to come together and figure it out. You know, how I can make yours better and how you can make mine better, how I can water your flower, you can water mine. And I feel like if we learn to not be afraid, because growing up and being raised, men was always taught those stuff in, and the communication just wasn't in. But my point, it would be, I love the communication. Let me know everything you're going through each and every day. And I'm gonna let you know each and everything I'm going through. And we're gonna figure it out from there. Especially if it's when it's that right connection and right vibe that you know it's God sent, it should just flow. And y'all shouldn't be able to be trying to guess what's on each other's mind. Speak it so it can be clear.
Welcome, Mr. Mizell. Welcome. Welcome, love.
Hello. Hello.
What's going on?
So,
you all right? Y'all all right?
So the conversation that you entered in was about how men can better talk about what they're dealing with as they're birthing, or what are some of the issues as to why. Britt, you can kind of elaborate. I think I might have the question a little bit mixed up, but
you're touching it there. Like, essentially, how can women better support men through their birthing process, and how can men kind of communicate that they're in a process, or they you know what's going on in that moment for them?
Yeah, I heard the question while I was driving. You know, I really think being a place of being his peace in that space, right? Being able to not so much, you know, stir the pot, but be a support, and not just you know, well, you know, this, that, and the third, and da 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 da, and and letting that person get out what it is, letting your husband, letting your significant other get out what it is that needs to be pushed out, and not just, you know, trying to force the situation. Because again, like my brother Dave said, you know, birthing something out is a very vulnerable space, because you know, we're still human. We can have the faith to believe that something's going to happen for us and that it's going to work, but our humanity will not will always creep up on that, you know, and say, well, it might not. And so having somebody who can walk you through that space, you know, I thank God for my wife, because everything that I've done since about 2020, December 2020, these thoughts I've had, these, you know, these ideas that God has given me to do, without having her patience, because I'm not the most, I am administrative, but when it comes to administration, I'm not the most savviest, right? So, you know, I'm like, throw ideas out and just say, hey, let's get this done. Hey, come on, like, you know, and for her to be patient in those spaces, because yeah, my mind is everywhere, because as a visionary, you're seeing the end goal of what you're looking for, and everybody else, you have to paint a picture for them to say, hey, this is what you're trying to do. So when you birthing something, you need people around, those midwives, those doulas, they call them, to help you get through that space in a productive way, and not in a nagging way, not in a beating you down because you don't have it all the way thought out. So that is important for the woman in your life. So yeah.
Britt, you were you agreeing with him?
I'm laughing.
He can tell you what you want, but honey, Britt knows we works together, and so I think that is
Keisha's comment. She said, "Pastor Dana D. Berry is the administrator. That's he is."
Mm-hmm.
You do for us, though. You do a good paint job.
Yeah.
Now Nene makes a very good point, and for me, I think that Craig has done that in several different instances of things going on in his life, in business or ministry, him trying to figure out what is God saying, what's next. He has been able to say to me, give me a minute. And I've been able to say, okay, he needs a minute. While he's taking his moment, let me undergird his moment in prayer. Let me undergird him trying to think it through, because his thoughts are not clear. Those are those moments when in the middle of the night, I'm Hikobo Shaka Masote de Besaya on his back or on his head, because Holy Spirit, bring it to him. Holy Spirit, you've given it to him. Give him the strength to bring it to pass and to actually speak it out of his mouth. A lot of times, men can know what God has said, they can see it, but they are scared to say it, because there is an enemy who knows that if the man says it, it's a wrap. Once that man get that thing out his mouth and he has somebody alongside him, even if he doesn't have a wife, his mother, his sisters, his close friends, when he spit that thing out and he has a protection, a wall of protection, people to support him that's going to help birth it out, the enemy knows once that man speaks it, it's a wrap. So,
and
yes.
I will say, I'm gonna get real and raw for a minute. I was in a marriage where I had a spouse that literally spoke against every single thing that I did, who her family spoke against every single thing I did. I wanna get a studio. Well, okay. Well, you got that studio. Okay. Well, I want to get a bigger studio now. Well, are you sure? Because I don't think that would, I don't know. And I had to, when you talk about, imagine if there was somebody, women, who you're giving birth to a baby, you're giving birth to an idea, and they're holding your leg shut, that you can't even push it out. And you got to fight against that to get this baby out, because it's going to kill the baby if you don't get those legs open to be able to push through the birthing canal. And when you literally have somebody who is holding you hostage and holding your legs together and you can't push it out, wow, and you still got to fight through that, so and still push it out, like that is the space I was in for 12 years. What? God, for 12, it will kill the baby and kill the mother. That's what will happen if you were to do that to a woman having a baby. So just think about it. You're trying to get ideas out, you're trying to do things. I could have never in the relationship I was in my previous marriage been able to do 5 for 5, to be able to step out as an artist, to be able to be able to build a label that has over 3 million streams in 3 years. You know, like that. Those are the things that wouldn't even be able to happen. You know, and so to have somebody in your corner that is now able to walk you through those spaces and you know, and is able to support you in those spaces is like a whole different ball of wax. It's a whole different freedom. It's a whole different liberation that you're able to now get this download from the heavens and then be able to birth it out without complication, without premature birth, without any malnourishment to what you're trying to do, because it's being fully undergirded in prayer. It's being fully undergirded with someone who has the faith to believe that what it is that God is speaking through you is able to come out and be able to flourish and be something. So, you know, and even here's another thing, and I'll move on. In those spaces when the woman is trying to birth out something and she ain't got the strength. She ain't got, like, she just, I can't anymore. I can't. So that's where I find myself sometimes like, yo, I want to do another one. I want to do another recording. I want to do it, but I don't have it in me. I don't, and to have a support system, a wife that can say, all right, come on, baby. Where we gotta do. I'm gonna help you. What we gotta do. Let's push. Let's get to this next space. I know it's in you. Let's go. So I'm not teaching. I'm just talking.
No, these are some good nuggets. You are, yes.
Real good. It reminds me. Oh, go ahead, bro.
Go ahead, Devin.
No, I wasn't about to say nothing. I was just about to mess with Craig.
It reminds me of, I go back to the garden, and I don't know why. For the last like 4 years of my life, I've been stuck in the Garden of Eden. But it reminds me of even there when Satan asks Eve the question, "Did God really say?" And so when you're trying to give birth to something, you can't have people around that are questioning what you know God has absolutely told you to do. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's good. Yeah.
What I was going to say is that I love so much all of your responses because, and I don't want us as women to get lost in this and make it about, you know, well, if it's just a husband or a man or my significant other, because the patience, the being able to support and be really genuine and fully pushing, I think sometimes can be a little easier, but I got 3 brothers. Sometimes I'm like, all right, and I'm the oldest. Sometimes I'm like, all right, y'all, come on. What we doing? What's up? So even some of those, the nuggets that you gave, I can see it can be helpful for us to just kind of check ourselves in multiple relationships as it relates to men in general and what they need from us, regardless to whether we're their wife or spouse, but just in the role that we are in. Pastor Craig, you opened up a door and I want to move on, but I can't move on from it. I'm sorry. The response was too great. You brought up being, but you brought this up. You brought it up. You brought up being where someone or being in a situation as a man, right? And not having the support you need, and what that could be traumatic, 12 years or however long. And I think many times, you know, feeling stunted as it relates to relationship, as it relates to what you're carrying and birthing, and then going into a new space where you're supported. Sometimes humans, we have a little PTSD. So can you talk a little bit or kind of give some keys how to open up, even in if it's not too, you know, vulnerable, not getting too much in your business, but how to transition in your mind when you have support. And for some people that's their pastors or their leaders. Some people it is a relationship, a spouse. Some people it's parenting or whatever. Like, how do you as men talking to other men encourage them to be able to like open up when they finally do have a space that's supportive and life breathing? Because I can only imagine that it probably wasn't like a light switch, like, okay, cool, I can take over the world now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. My wife and I went on a date Saturday, I think it was. Was it Saturday or was it Sunday? I don't know. One of these days this past week. And the I think for the first time in 21, 22, 23, 24, we going on 4 years in December. My math isn't that great. 4 years in December. And there was just a vulnerability I was able to be with her and just kind of talk about spaces of deliverance that I had to go through, spaces of growth that I've had, and I haven't, and you know, I wouldn't have been vulnerable to say that to anybody, let alone my wife. But I would say to any man, if you have a spouse, you have a significant other that you are intending to move on in life with, you have to communicate with them. You have to talk to them. You have to be vulnerable enough and cut the macho stuff out and say, hey man, like I agree. We should all go to somebody outside a therapist, a counselor, and speak with that person. But I think the first line of therapy is actually talking to the person that is right there with you, that's going through with you, and being vulnerable with them, and not being yeah, you can get that PTSD, because I tried to have conversations like that in my previous marriage. It didn't go well. It didn't, because when you're not yoked equally, then you know you're not going to be able to talk that out, and they even have a sense of understanding about it. So to be able to be yoked with somebody, because the idea of a yoke is that, you know, if I have two oxen that are going, if the right leg of the one oxen is weak and the left leg of the other oxen is weak, then we're yoked together, and that helps us go together and to walk together with the same amount of strength that we would if we, you know, as opposed to being alone by ourselves and trying to draw a carriage, you know, or trying to draw a wagon. So to get to the space of where you can communicate with someone and they're able to hold you up in your weak space, and they're able to invite you into a safe place to talk about your weaknesses, to be able to have somebody. You have to communicate. You can't just keep walking around and acting like ain't nothing wrong with me. Ain't nothing wrong with me. My sister just put it up. The man, it's hard to tear a man's wall down when you're talking about he's been hurt, he's been, you know, it's hard to tear that down. And in 4 years, I had the most authentic relationship conversation with my wife just a week ago, just a few days ago, rather. And it was so refreshing to be able to have that conversation so she could further understand and she could further help me into different spaces. And now she knows what to pray for, and she knows what to, you know, like these are the things that we run away from as men because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe, you know, and me not feeling safe ain't had nothing to do with her. It had to do with where I came from. And that's what happened. We're not safe because of what happened to us, as opposed to really analyzing and discerning the person you're with and saying they can handle my weakness. They can handle where I came from, and they are a safe space. But you first got to get a good one. First got to get a good one.
Amen.
Yeah. Pastor DeVay, Pastor Tyson, anything else you would like to add to that as it relates to just the PTSD that can come from, you know, of not being supported?
So I'll say that's why I'm still in therapy, because I don't know how to recover. And so once that trust or once that support has been lost, it is all bets off for me. And so it's kind of one of those things where I rely on my partner to be able to cover me and to be able to support and understand that as kind of the leader of this operation, I know we like, I don't want to get into like, you know how this stuff goes, but like as the head of the household, as the man in that regard, I need you to understand that I need you to trust me, first of all, to be able to make the decisions that are going to allow the best possible thing for us. I'm okay with us having a conversation. I'm okay with the disagreement. That stuff is fine. But the blatant like disrespect, the blatant like lack of support, the blatant like did God really say type deal, that's kind of when I'm just like I don't, because I struggle enough sometimes in my own insecurities to where like sometimes God will give an instruction and I will question like, are you sure you want me to do this? Are you sure this is the right play? Those things or whatever. So just me trying to have that confirmation from him. And so for me to have my own reservations and now to add additional reservations on top of the ones that I already have, not saying that you can't voice your concerns or anything like that, but I think being mindful of it. But for me, like I said, once I feel like I've lost that support or I feel like I've lost that backing or that covering, I do not know how to recover. It's the exact reason why I'm single now, because a couple of the last situations, it's just like I don't know how to maneuver from this space anymore. And so for me, it's just kind of like all bets are off. You can be somebody else is a good thing. I'm gonna go. I'm sorry, but yeah. So.
That's good. Pastor Tyson, do you have anything to add before we move on?
I mean, Pastor Craig, he said everything, and it's funny because I didn't know he was married 12 years because I was married 12 years, and our stories are kind of similar.
That's why we brothers. That's why we brothers.
Look at his shirt. Look at what he got on. Look at my hat.
Absolutely. We met for the first time this year. It is an experience ever since.
Right. I'm telling you. When I heard you talking, I'm like, man, it's almost identical. But I'm sorry. You can move on to the next. Thank you. I love this. I love y'all.
So I do have a question for you, Craig, directly. As a husband and a mid-husband, we had the question written as midwife. As a mid-husband and intercessor to Pastor Dana, can you provide some things that you have done that helps cultivate purpose and has helped her birth out purpose?
I mean, I've just been, besides the spiritual aspect of it, which when we came in the covenant, that was just a giving. So when you're not getting that spiritual side and you come in the covenant and declare before God, you're going to hold this person up in sickness and health and, the rest of it, if you ain't doing that bare minimum, like that's a problem. So let's get past that. Now, what skills do I have naturally that can undergird what she's doing? For her, in my way, it's administration, it's nurturing, because I'm a hard father. She's softened me up with my children and stuff like that. That's been her way. She's helped me with that. My way, the best way I can help her is I'm technologically savvy. I'm a music producer. So whatever the gifts that God has given me, then that's what I'm gonna use to help undergird her and get her to her purpose. And she could have married anybody. She could have said, I don't like you too much, so I'm gonna move on. But there was something that, you know, that was there. And then clearly it was God ordained, because the way we're not free from any of the other woes that face other marriages. We have tits and tats back and forth, and we have argument. We don't really argue, but we have our times where we have moments in our marriage. But at the end of the day, I feel it's so God ordained, because even in my last marriage, my awareness in certain things about what was happening in my own home wasn't strong. It wasn't there. So that was something I had to pray to God for, to build up in me, is my awareness about things that are going on, my discernment about things that are going on. And so now those things help me in a different way, because now my discernment about, well, what her body language is this today. So what's that? Okay, all right, I got it. Okay. Oh, hold on. You know what? I did something. Even today. I'm gonna give you an example. Today, just today. Okay.
Watch it now.
I messed up. I had a breakfast meeting that I had to go to, and I was late to the meeting. I was a little tired, so I took an extra 30 minutes. And the extra 30 minutes put me a whole 30 minutes behind on my whole day. And I was late coming to get her, to take her somewhere that she needed to go. And in that moment, she was a little, come on, Craig, come on. And she was deservingly so, because it was my fault. But previously, you ain't talking to me like that. You ain't, and she wasn't even talking to me crazy. It's just the fact that you're saying something to me. And that was in my previous marriage. That's how I would have reacted. Now the awareness that I have is one of, Craig, this is all your fault. You need to take the onus for it. You need to say, I'm sorry. You need to apologize, and you need to make it right however way you can make it right. And that's a huge thing for me, because I can be petty. So me moving away from pettiness and saying, hey, relax. This was on you. Make it right. Do what you do. Do what you have to do to get you and your wife back in alignment. And that's just kind of the you know, the space I'm in now. And then that's how I'm able to undergird her more, because I feel like in her purpose, because she doesn't have to worry about you know, certain things about how her husband's going to react to something she's coming and asking, something she's, you know, I am a procrastinator. I can procrastinate because I'm like, oh, I can get it done. Oh, I can get it done. And so, you know, understanding that and being like, in her purpose, I can't procrastinate. You know what I'm saying? I can't do that with her because she's such a planner. So procrastination doesn't work for her vision. It just doesn't. So you need to come out of that. Not last year, what was it, 2 years ago, Releasing Heaven.
You got fired.
I got fired for like 20 minutes. You know, her producer, because there was I procrastinated and waited, like, oh, I can get this, you know, I can get this done in time, and you know, blah 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 blah. Not this time. No, this time I'm like, okay, Quentin, he's my mixing engineer. Hey, bud, we got to get this done now. We got to get this, and we went about it, and we did it however we had to do it to make sure it got done on time this go around. So you know, like, you have to sometimes set aside and identify your shortcomings, your proclivities to do the wrong thing in certain spaces, and you have to identify them, be aware of them, and then neutralize them all at the same time. Okay, identify them and neutralize them, be aware of them, and get them out the way, because what that will do is create chaos where chaos doesn't have to live. I think a lot of times we in situations where we're dealing with our spouses, with our partners, we create chaos because we fail to identify what it is in yourself that is creating the chaos. And once you are able to identify what is creating the chaos, then you can stop it. And it's just period at that point. It's period point blank. But you have to have a willingness to do that. You have to have a willingness, and you have to have a whole, somebody just said it. Accountability is big. It shows the maturity and growth in a person. So be accountable. Let the person hold you accountable. A woman telling you, hey, you didn't do something isn't necessarily nagging. Did you do it? Did you accomplish it? That's not a nagging. That's facts. So
I think one of the main things that actually causes our marriage to work as it relates to birthing and destiny and all of the things that I've done with his assistance as it relates to the prayer projects, specifically as it relates to prayer services specifically, is that we are partners.
Mm-hmm.
There's no competition between us. I know my lane, he knows his lane. And I think that if it goes back, I think to some of the things we were talking about in the beginning, the village. When the village knows their place, when you know the part you play your part well, and it works for the whole. So I think that's how we've identified that early on in our marriage, that we are partners.
Yeah.
I don't have to fight against him. He doesn't have to fight against me. I'm for his purpose. He's for my purpose. And at the end of the day, it's for the greater good of both of us.
I used to, in every situation, there is a lead. Somebody has to lead. There's a visionary. There's somebody who has. So early on, in order for me to not, because Craig can just be like, okay, this needs to get done. And Craig will just be like, all right, come on, let's come on. And I think at the beginning of our relationship, I decided like, whatever it is you want to do, baby, whatever, I got you. And she always runs stuff past me, like, and it's not permission. I don't need permission from me, but it's like she will run stuff past me, like, hey, I'm doing this. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, whatever you want to do, baby, that's fine. I mean, that's, And I didn't realize the permission she was giving me to be able to really counterbalance what's going on with her, to give her a different insight, to give a different thing, a different view of what's happening, to be able to even greater help her purpose, to even push what it is that she's birthing out. And so that was a space that I had to realize this is a partnership. And it is, and that was the space where I finally realized that this is a partnership. And she's showing me, and there's, in a marriage, you should be learning from your spouse. You should be learning from that person. And that's what I've learned from her, is how to be a partner. Because I can be naturally dogmatic about things, and being able to have someone who can kind of walk me out of that, because I don't want to be like that. I want to be able, how do we collaborate? Collaboration is such a huge part of what we do, what I do now. And my collaboration has just increased exponentially because of being in a relationship with somebody who is able to identify, you have collaborative problems in certain spaces. Now let's work on them. And she never said that to me. It's just how we've worked on them. Some things just don't have to be said when you have somebody who understands you.
So good. Okay, before we wrap up, DeVay, Pastor Tyson, do either of you have any last thoughts, any final thoughts on any of what we've discussed tonight?
I'm sorry, real quick, somebody put Andrea Roper's last comment. Love it. No competing, just completing. That is amazing.
I've seen it. I've seen that.
No competing, just completing. That's all it's about. Just get it done.
Let me put that on the t-shirt. Oh,
love that. All rights reserved by Andrea Roper. Amen.
Any last thoughts? Any final thoughts? Any final words that you want to share? Men birthing.
Oh, I've talked enough.
Go ahead, Pastor Ted.
No, for me, I think we've covered a lot of good content tonight, and I think we've covered the bases in a lot of different areas. I think as it pertains to men, vulnerability is everything, and I think that's the one thing that we kind of tend to shy away from the most. But I think it all boils down to essentially, and this is we may call this an old saying, whatever you want to call it, but it's just one of those things. What do you want to get out of your life? What do you want to get out of this experience? What do you want to get out of the years that you've spent on this earth? And I think to even flip that question a little bit, what do you want other people to get out of your life? And I think that when we start to evaluate our lives that way, it'll help us to position ourselves better in certain environments. And so I think understanding what we're trying to accomplish and understanding the impact that we actually want to leave on the earth. I can't say I want to be somebody that makes great impact and not do anything that breeds great impact. I can't say that I want to leave a legacy for my child and not have anything prepared for, not create a legacy. And so I think that the intentionality of your decision is going to make all the difference in your life and in your bloodline. And so when just us as men, if we're not intentional, we're reckless. We see that in David's life. We see that in Solomon's life. We see that across in a lot of different areas. Again, back in the garden, we see that with Adam. I think if we're not careful, our inability to make sound decisions, it causes detriments for generations to come. And so that's my final thoughts for tonight.
I think if I was to say, sum it up in 3 words, I would say, as I said in the beginning, learn to love yourself, forgive, and move on. Once you learn to love who you are and who God created you to be, and once you learn to forgive those who have hurt you, from past relationships or for abuse, whatever it is going to help you to move forward and birth out those things God has placed on the inside of you. And I think that would be it.
Pastor Craig, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I mean, my last thing I probably say is just trust the process. Birthing takes, what is it scientifically? 10 months? 10 months.
Right. 40 weeks is 10 months.
40 weeks, yeah. 10 months. Okay. So it takes 10 months. It takes the time it takes. Sometimes it might come a little early and still be healthy. But it takes as long as it takes. Be patient through the process and let the work of the Lord take hold how it's going to take hold, period. Your birthing process isn't the same as everybody else's. Your birthing process is unique to you. So however it is that you have to get the vision out, get the purpose out, that's how you get it out. Don't worry about anybody else. Run your race, put your blinders on, and you birth how you birth and in the time that you birth. Yep.
Amen. I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Danny, but my final thoughts are, thank you all so much for joining us. I love hearing from each and every one of you. proof that good, strong, sound, Christ-minded men are alive when the world is trying to tell us they don't exist. They are alive. So thank you all so much. And if this live was not nothing else but proof for you to make sure that you have a seat June 29th for the Birthing Room Conference, I don't know, it's on the screen, danadberry.com. Get your ticket because it's going to be amazing. Pastor Dana?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Britt. Always a great co-host with me, always helping keep the conversation flowing and going. So I appreciate you so much for your contribution to DBM, your contribution to me. Thank you to the men who have been so informative, so vulnerable, and giving information and sharing your thoughts and your life experiences that have helped to make this conversation what it has been tonight. So we appreciate you. Again, if you came in towards the end, you want to go back and watch it from the beginning because there have been some great nuggets that have been shared, some great information that will inspire you, encourage you, and empower you to birth, to walk in your destiny and your purpose. So I just want to, again, remind everybody that the conference is next Saturday, June 29th at Grace Christian Church in Sterling Heights. It starts at 9 a.m. Registration is required for the conference. The album releases at 6 p.m. On the same day with these amazing guests that will join us and help us celebrate the album release. Reminding everybody that the album drops. I said drop. Did I say drop? It drops on Friday, June 28th. I'm so excited. As Kevin says this after every project, but I think he may absolutely be right this time. He said, "Mom, I think this is my favorite." He says this after every one, but for real, I believe that this is my favorite. I believe this is the one because of the content, because of the prophetic utterance, because of the whole atmosphere in the room that night. I believe that Holy Spirit breathed on us that night. Not that he has not breathed on us before, not that any other project was not anointed, but there's something about this project because I am a midwife and because he gave me the theme, the birthing room. It literally feels the whole feel of the project. When I've listened back to it several times now, I've listened to it and I'm like, oh my God, like it encourages you to want to give birth. It encourages you to want to walk in purpose. And so that was the whole purpose behind it. So I want you to go to your digital outlet now, Dana D. Berry, and you will see, as I said, the fuchsia dress, the hot pink dress. You will see, and you can download tonight, and you will get favor, and you will also get the feature with Tanya Ray. You're almost there. You want to go download now so that next Friday, when midnight hits, you'll get an alert. All those that are blue, the anointed ones, the blue. You'll get the alert that says you have new music. Hallelujah. So go get that. Lastly, tomorrow morning, we have one of our guests that will be with us on Saturday night. She will be joining us tomorrow morning. A powerhouse apostle, Shante Warren, will be ministering to us in the morning. Talking about birthing, whatever God has given to her. So set your alarms to join us in the morning. That is everything that I believe. Minister Keisha, did I miss anything? Did I get everything that we needed to make sure we covered for tonight? Otherwise, whatever I missed, I'll make sure you get it in the morning. Good night, everybody, and thank you for joining us.